Welcome to Foundation Repair Success Secrets, the podcast that's rocking the foundation repair industry. Discover how to boost your leads, raise your profits, and lift your digital presence. Together, let's dig deep and transform your foundation repair business.
Awesome. All right, guys, welcome to another episode. Today we have Jason Fry all the way up in Ohio. Jason, how's it going?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Doing good, man. So what is going on? Tell me, let's start with the origination story. How did you guys get from where you were to where you are, which is a pretty impressive state, and it's been quite a while in the making?
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, I was in retail in the grocery industry, and my boss said to me, you make too much money for your age. And I was like, well, I know what that means. So what you're telling me is that you appreciate the work I'm doing for you in my early 20s, but I shouldn't get paid as much as somebody who is in their 50s, 60s, just because they're older than me. So I knew I was at a dead-end job, and I was like, okay, I'm going to move my career. So my stepfather was in this business in foundation repair, basement waterproofing. He was from Cleveland, Ohio. We lived in Columbus at the time, and I asked him to come aboard. He goes, hey, I'm training 3 guys in 2 weeks. Why don't you be the 4th guy? And I've been doing it ever since and started my own company. So that's the quick of me, how I got into this, because you don't go to college for this. Other than that, I worked for a couple different companies in Columbus. That's where I was born at. And we're in Cincinnati, Ohio now. And I started my own company about 8 years ago down here, mainly to avoid a non-compete, 1. But 2, I came down to Cincinnati quite frequently and had a lot of success with one of the first companies I worked for. But, I tell people all the time, I started my own company for 50 different reasons, if not more. And one of the main reasons is I was seeing a lot of things in the industry because it's very salesy out there. Just like a lot of industries, but in our industry, you get sales reps coming out and they get paid 100% commission. There's nothing wrong with that. I did it for years, but the interest of that person is to get sale, and that's how they get paid. They don't get paid any other way. And I was tired of people being misled in the industry. And I'm like, I got to do something about this, because that's the kind of guy I am. So I started my own company to be truthful and do things the right way. And, tell people if they really have a problem, if they really need to do it now, or if they could wait, or, whatever the situation, whatever the customer wants to do. So my reviews out there are perfect. So I kind of, hold strong to that. So I don't know. I could talk to you for an hour about, the details and genesis of this. But, if you want to know more information, go ahead and ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Okay, cool. So it started from a point that I can definitely relate to, being a fellow business owner. It's really interesting. Like, I wonder what goes through someone's head that they say, hey, you're making too much for your age. Like, is that just them reflecting on their values and kind of their own criticisms? Like, I was broke when I was your age, so you should be broke. Like, where does that even come from?
Yeah. I think that could be part of it. A little bit of jealousy thing there, like you said. It really came down to that. I was, maxed out on my pay. Even if I were 50, 60 years old, I was kind of maxed out on my pay. Because I always did great work. I always went above and beyond. I worked Saturday and Sundays at 6 a.m. Whatever they asked me, I never called off work. I go in there sick. It didn't matter. I was a great employee. But they couldn't, physically, I guess, pay me any more money, no matter who I was, what age I was, without getting up higher in the rankings, So it's okay. That's fine. If that's the business, that's fine. But it wasn't for me long term. So
Right. And props to you for acknowledging that and taking right action, because some people, they'll acknowledge it and they'll just be like, all right, it is what I'm not happy. I'm going to be upset. It's going to frustrate me forever, but I'll just keep it easy. So you said you started the business for about 50 different reasons, maybe even some more. One of them, I'm sure, was not because it's easy, right? It's probably easier just to stick back and do what you were doing to some extent, although you'd be gritting your teeth. So tell me about kind of those trials and tribulations starting off.
As far as being an owner.
Yes, yeah, starting the business, and obviously you get some wins, you get some challenges. Maybe you could kind of give us some insights on that and how you overcame some of these obstacles when you guys were starting the business.
Yeah, I mean, it just first of all, when I left the company I was working for, they were becoming a big company, and the owner calls me and he's like, "Hey, did you uh did you take so and so to work for you?" I'm like, "No." I go, "Dude, you think I had this big mastermind when I left and resigned with you? It's just me. There is
Mm,
nobody else." I told him, I was like, "I'm downstairs jackhammering a basement floor out underneath the basement steps right now." And he's like,
right.
"Oh, okay. I've been there before." I'm like, "Yeah, leave me alone. It's just me." So I did everything. Finished, I answered the phone calls. I went out, talked to the customer. They wanted me to do the work. I was out there at 8 o'clock in the morning, actually did all the physical work by myself, carrying buckets, 5 gallon buckets of debris, concrete out of the basement, which means you're walking up steps and you're walking back
Mm,
down with material and everything. And then I next thing I know, it's 5 o'clock. I'm like, holy cow, I felt like it's noon. And I got to get going because I got to go see a new client at 6 o'clock and see a new client, get the job, don't get it, whatever, get home at like 8:30 and eat dinner, take a shower and pass out and do it all over again.
mm.
And I did that for 3 years straight.
Oh wow, that was going to be my next question. Is how long did you sacrifice on that? 3 years straight, where it was solo or pretty much solo.
Yeah, and the first year I lived up in Columbus and I was living in the garage that uh, we had for all of our storage. And
Mm,
there was a bathroom in there and a sink, and I busted out the concrete floor and found the sewer main and made a shower. In-
wow.
and I did that for a year, sleeping on a pull out, taking a shower in the garage, and not being with my family. So I come down early Monday morning and leave Friday, and see my family on the weekends. And I was toast on the weekends, and
Mm,
my wife and I are like, we got to do something about this. So we moved down here, that next year, and things just kept getting better. I was more local, and then it got to the point where there was too much to do. I was, people were
mm.
calling me, my reputation's building, and I had to get something. And that is, kind of getting back to your question, that is the hardest first step when you start your own company from scratch. Taking that step of getting your first person to help you, that is hard for many reasons. Financially, getting the right
Yeah.
person, doing the thing, training them, and now you're growing your company. I mean, you're literally doubling your company from one guy to two guys. It's the
Mm,
hardest step. Once you get through that, we could talk all day long about those details. Getting somebody else is much easier. Getting a third person, a fourth, a fifth. Right now, I got 6 guys working for me. I have 2 crews, 2 trucks, 3 guys a crew, and I'm still doing all the phone calls. I'm still running all the appointments, getting the jobs, but I don't do the work anymore. And that was a huge thing
mm.
off my plate of getting out of that. I did the work with one guy, him and I got 2 guys, it was 3 of us. And then once I got that third guy, then I got out of doing the work.
Okay,
And
got
that
it.
was a huge step there.
Man, yeah, it is. It's a pretty big chasm, and yeah, it's tough. So what's the secret maybe that you could reveal behind that first hire? Did you have to hire and fire, 2 or 3 people? Did you just really wait it out to get the right person? What can someone in your position do to maybe get that right, like you ended up doing?
Well, this was in the production side and not the sales side. It's really two different animals. Getting a
Oh yeah.
salesperson, getting a production person. And I heard it left and right, and for years. And the one I always like is, a guy's like, "Oh man, I work really hard. I got hillbilly strength." And I'm laughing in my head. I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna see how good your hillbilly strength's gonna do." and we're in a crawl space working, him and I, and he made it a week and a half, and he's like, man,
Wow.
I'm hearing stuff down here in this crawl space. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you from Nam or something? You know, you went to war there, stuff like, well, what are you talking about? You're hearing stuff. Couldn't do it. And I've always said 90% of the people in the world cannot do this job. It beats you down physically. And we do a lot of crawl spaces, and you're in tight spaces that are 18 inches, 16 inches tall. You're laying down all day long. Some people are, can't be in a space like that. They would freak out. So, I went through a couple people, and then once you find that right guy, the door just opens up, because that guy usually knows another guy. And I was fortunate because this guy brought on 2 more guys almost instantly that he met at his church.
Cool.
And, that should be pretty decent people, and ended up being perfect. And those guys are still with me today.
Awesome. I hear that story a lot. People know good people, or good people know good people.
Exactly. But you got to work with that person, physically. The first thing the owner wants to do, it's a big mistake, is, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't be doing all this. I just got to get somebody in here and get out of, what I've been doing, and move on and grow the company, not work in the company, work on the company. I mean, we've all heard that. And yeah, there is truth to that. But at the very beginning, when you're doing this by yourself, you can't do that. You can't just hand it off. Even if it's a guy that's supposedly experienced, and I've been doing this for 10 years in this industry, working for a competitor, blah, blah, blah. That's great. I hope that's true. But you have got to be there working with that guy side by side to really know, working an 8-hour shift, not just one day, but all week or for a month, whatever it takes, to make sure this guy's really the dude, so where you can finally move on to the next step. So
that's cool. Yeah. And you got to kind of place and then check in. Place them, check in. Place them, check in. Some people think too, I could just place, let them loose, let them free. I'll trust them. They'll do their part. And as long as I don't hear any chaos, everything should be all right. But I'd assume that you would probably agree with that. It's like, I'm going to get them in place. I'm going to kind of do the basic elementary training, that kind of thing. And then I'll check in, sometimes unannounced.
Yeah, it is a mistake. And I got to stop myself from getting too excited of, hey, well, I'll just deal with this guy. If he ends up being a problem, I'll just deal with it then. I have to stop myself mentally when I start thinking that way, and you got to do it the harder way. So, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about that, but did you have any?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when did you feel like, was there a team count number? Was there a revenue number? When did you feel like you kind of made it through phase 1 to some extent? And you may still feel like you're in phase 1 because maybe you're difficult on yourself, or your own worst enemy, like I can be myself. But was there a pinch off point where you said, all right, I made it through the introductory phase, I'm now into phase 2? And where was that milestone for you?
Yeah, it's pretty much what I told you towards the end, is when I got that guy who then brought on 2 more guys instantly, and I had 3 guys, and I didn't have to do the work anymore. And that him and I did the work for months and months together. And I knew he was the right guy. That was that stepping stone for me. That took me to the next level, that I knew this guy could be my foreman. He knew people out there, and he brought people on who were good people. And now I know I could step away and move on. That was that point. And it was great. It helped me mentally and obviously physically. The negative is that I put on 50 pounds.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't doing the work anymore. And, I had a smartwatch, one of the first generations, and it said at the end of the day that I made 28,000 steps, and that it was equivalent to 9.5 miles of walking. The thing
Jeez.
about that is probably a third of that was me carrying 2 5-gallon buckets of gravel, concrete, and dirt, and going down and up flights of steps.
Mm,
And at the end of the day, it said I went 218 flights of steps.
Jesus.
Right. So you're kind of burning a lot of calories doing that. And when you just all of a sudden stop that, and I
Right.
still eat the same that I was eating, yeah,
Mm,
your body doesn't, like that. So that was a negative right there. With it was I ate whatever I wanted. It didn't matter. Ice cream all day, the cookies, full blown meals. I kept the weight off. Weighed 190 pounds. But yeah, I got
wow.
up to 250, and I had to deal with that. So
Was that just a nutritionist thing, or did you decide, hey, I need to get back in the gym? Like, what helped you kind of level that thing out?
well, I went to a fasting. Basically, I stopped eating lunch,
Okay.
and I still do it today. I have 2 eggs in the morning, a small 6-ounce orange juice, water, of course, and that's it. I don't have anything else but water
Oh,
until
wow.
dinner time. 5:30, 6. Whatever it is. And the first week or two, you're like, oh, I'm hungry and all that. You totally get used to it. And I dropped
Mm,
that weight um, over time, of course, wasn't instantly. And I've been doing it ever since, just maintaining the weight. And I eat what I want for dinner. Full
okay.
blown steak, potatoes, whatever. I have that. I have fish, pork, whatever. But I have a
Mhm.
full meal at dinner, and it works. It's worked great.
Very interesting, because this does kind of correlate to like business ownership and stuff. I'm sure there's other owners who've been in the same spot and they never made a change, or frankly, maybe they were never in the same spot and they always were just kind of the CEO, or the sales guy, whatever. And they're like, hey, what should I do? I actually have a client and he ended up getting on the shot. I believe it's Ozempic, or one of those things. And
Yep.
for him, he's just self-proclaimed that he's always been a big guy, always from day one. And I know that there's debate on the shots and stuff like that, but he's like, man, I'm so much better on this. Like, I'm down to a reasonable waist. I'm no longer obese. I feel like
Yeah.
I have energy. And I'm like, all right, man, whatever it takes, that's awesome. And he's, crushing it. He's doing millions of dollars a year in sales just from his efforts. So
Mm.
that's pretty exciting. What about the industry? Where do you think the industry is going? I'm not expecting artificial intelligence to change your world or anything like that. But do you see any changes or differences in the business, maybe from a marketing perspective, the internet, any of that kind of stuff make a difference, maybe for lead volume, lead quality, competitors kind of creeping in? What are you seeing with now and the future of the industry?
Well, it's real quick on the AI thing. I've been saying that I am good to go the rest of my life. I'm,
Mhm.
I'm 46. We're not going to have a robot jackhammering out a basement floor
No.
in the next 10, 20 years. It's just more complex than just jackhammering a floor out and
Oh
doing
yeah.
what we do. Having a robot crawling in a crawl space and doing everything. There may be a time for that, but I'm not going to see that in my lifetime, I don't think. So that's great for me, job security. As far as the marketing side, we've had a major competitor in the past 5 years come into the market. I'm sure people know who I'm talking about. And the motto is that they doubled advertising costs. So in our industry, you spend 10% on marketing, and they
Mm.
went to 20%.
Oh,
Yeah, immediately. And
geez.
they have, and this was their plan. I know it is they're trying to drive out the small guy. They can't
Hmm.
afford it. Your Google cost per lead, um, it really more and doubles it. Just because they spent double doesn't mean they doubled it. It ends up being more cost. So that's been, clearly that has its challenges. But I built this company, and what I'm seeing is almost every single day I get somebody calling me saying, we have decided on you fixing our basement. We've read your reviews. And they're not just
Mm,
reviews that, hey, great company, does good work. These are like paragraphs that people are,
right.
and um, people are like really, they're liking what they hear about my company. And I heard you do great work from so and so. My realtor referred me, my friend of a friend, my coworker. It doesn't matter. I'm getting it like every day. So that, that is huge. And that is all from the beginning, working hard, doing the right thing. There's just so many things with that. So it's not really affecting me. I mean, I'm having a
Mm,
record year. Every year I have grown. I have never had a balanced year. I've never had less than the year before. I've always been growing. And right now where we stand, you have your goal, and then you have what's called a stretch goal, which is like a
right.
dream goal. I'm hitting the stretch goal right now.
Nice.
Absolutely fantastic. That's a great way to grow right there. So, the company is not affecting me, and I don't care, about that. But just wanted to bring it up, that has been a challenge, in the marketing. And marketing is number one. If you don't have the leads, if you don't have the marketing, you're out of business.
Mm. How do you go about that? Is that an internal position? Is that an agency? Like, how do you guys go about doing that?
I have an agency that does everything for me, which is it's great because I can't do it. Uh, with everything else, I can't do it. Um, so I have them do it for me. And technology is always changing. The marketing's changing constantly. Google is constantly coming up with different ideas, making changes. Google's the biggest place to be on, of course. Uh,
Mm,
I can't maintain that. I can't upkeep that. You need a full-time person doing that, and they are the full-time person, and they're nationwide and they're in our industry. And I went through a few marketing companies until I got this company that I've been happy with now. So, but at some point, I need to have that internal person, uh,
interesting.
who's meeting with that company. You still keep that company, who is doing Facebook, putting on videos daily, taking pictures, updating, doing other avenues. I need that person. I am that person, and I'm not doing it. I don't have time for it. There's,
Right.
it's part of being that owner and getting that next step. But there's a time for that, and yeah, I should be doing it now to grow. But I'm not looking at growing. One of the mottos with this big company I told you about, a little bit ago, is they're doubling their business every single year. And
Mm,
we did it at my old company. We went from $660,000 the first year to 1.2 to 2.4 to 4.8 to 8 to 16 to $30 million
oof.
company. Yeah, we were doubling every single year, but we had the infrastructure to do that. The owner
Okay.
had all these other guys that he had at the company we used to work at together before he started that company. So he had all the people in place.
Mm,
So it was relatively somewhat easy, for him to do that. So I'm growing slower. I always said, well, if I could do half that, I'd be doing great,
right.
and it hasn't really gone that way, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Don't grow too fast. You don't need to be doubling your company, because what's going to happen? Are you going to be $1 billion company and do 2 billion the next year, and then 4, and then 8, 16, and be $1 trillion company? It has to stop at some point. You just can't keep doubling
Right.
ever. So it becomes unrealistic, too much
Mm,
pressure. And as a salesperson, pressure, it affects you mentally.
right. Yeah, kind of they could smell it off you. I know in my sales world, when I really authentically didn't need the money, and sometimes I'd even verbally say, "Hey, look, I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to be a consultant. I'm here to give you the best solutions that I know of. And if one of those solutions or the solution is valuable and helpful and competitive with other solutions that you're getting, then we'd be happy to extend the olive branch and work together." But I'm not going to be here for 4 hours trying to get you to sign the dotted line and discounting at every second to try to get you to do something. I'm not going to ask if your spouse is there to make sure that the decision maker is there. I mean, I'm just going to be there and offer the best that we can, try to be the honest player. Yeah, that kind of seems very much in alignment with what you guys do. Now, would you say, not to beat up, we're not going to say the name of the other company, is their sales process similar to yours, or are they more of the aggressor, the you got to sign or die type? Where do they stand?
Yeah, it's a little funny you bring that up. There's a company that has had a hardcore sales since the 80s, and they're still around today. And they've been doing the same dog and pony show exactly since the 80s.
Wow.
They are taught that from corporate, and if you don't do that exact presentation and your sales manager finds out, he fires you.
Jeez, I think I know who you're talking about too. That's wild.
Yeah, and I'm finding that this newer company that I've been talking about is, I'm calling them the new blank company. They're some of the similar things. And what's funny about that is that before I had this call with you, I was on a customer talking to her on the phone, and she said, just one example, yeah, the guy went down there immediately and said, well, it's really musty down in this basement. And she's like, no, it's not. I'm like, I go, ma'am, did he do that when he went halfway down your basement steps and said that to you, or when he got to the bottom of the steps? She's like, yeah, he did. I go, my rookie year, I was taught that from my stepfather that you need to do that because that creates urgency in a customer's mind that, oh my gosh, I got a mustiness in my basement, and it's planting the seed to get the sale today, not tomorrow. So it's funny you asked me that, because I just got off the phone call with the customer, and I told her, I go, listen, I don't do any of that stuff. I was taught that, and I don't like that. And you don't need to do that. Just do the right thing for people. Be honest. And you're not going to get everybody, but it's good karma. Come on. You're doing the right thing. So.
Well, and you got to evolve too. I mean, I would say you probably hear a lot from people. They feel a discomfort, a distrust, a uncertainty with people who are doing that approach. And I mean, it's pretty clear as day, like it's almost a timeshare type of thing, which is a whole nother thing to delve in. I've recently begun targeted with marketing of timeshare exit companies. And ironically, a lot of the people who started those were timeshare salesmen. And I'm like, wait a second, you're getting both sides of the action, and you're still, even the exit companies, they treat it like the timeshare sales where they just pressure people. It's high ticket, they hammer them. And it's so funny because it's like, I guess they think, hey, they were someone who bought a timeshare based off of those sales methods. So they'll get out of a timeshare based on those same sales methods. But to me, in a modern world, I think a lot of people are not into that anymore. They're really turned off. I know that there was a company that we almost worked with. We do the marketing for this industry, and one of them, I'm asking about their sales process, and they tell me oh yeah, we on the phone calls, we check to see if the decision maker or the husband will be. And I'm like, wait a second, you say will the husband be there if a woman is the person? They're like, yeah, that's statistically the decision maker. And I'm like, man, that's pretty awkward.
Yeah. No, that's my industry right there. A lot of the companies will not go out to the homeowner's house if both of the decisions are not there. They will not do it.
Crazy.
And, I understand exactly why they do it. I think you do too. To get the sale today, that's why. And they come up this nice fancy way of saying, no, we just want to answer your questions, and we found it's best that when both of you are there, why we're there, it's always the best to answer your questions. No, it's not. That's not what they care about. They want to get the sale today because the homeowner's going to say at the end, if one of them are there, well, I got to think about it. What does he need to think about? Well, I need to talk to my wife, or I need to talk to my husband about it. You can't do anything about that as a sales rep. Now, I'm sure sales reps out there are hearing me and saying, oh, I could do something about that. The next step. Yeah, we could go into that. Yeah, there are things you can do. but ultimately that's hard to overcome. That's why they
Right.
put people there. You know what I've done? I do the opposite. I don't even care if they're there or not, both of them. Most of the
Mm.
appointments I go on, they're both not there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I've done it both ways. I've done it where both homeowners are there. I go in the evening at 6 o'clock when they're both home from work. I've done it that way. And I've done it the way where I'm there at 9:30 in the morning with one of them. And guess what? That's the way I've been doing it since I started my company. And guess what? I have more sales than I've ever had.
Right.
Both ways work, but you don't have to do it that way. And people are offensive. And in this day of age, it's too hard to get both people in the house. You got people who
Mm.
work second shift and the wife works first or third or whatever, and it's almost impossible to get them both there. People have kids, the kids are doing sports, there's just too many things. People are busy.
Right.
So you
Right.
just
It's not the 60s.
not. It's exactly, it's not. So just calm down. You don't have to do that. Things are changing. And one thing that's changing that is challenging for me is I'm finding people don't want to talk on the phone.
Oh.
And they want to do, emails and texts from the get-go, setting up the appointment. They won't give you
Hmm.
your phone number.
Mm.
And that's getting into your younger generation. The people are texting and they're in the same room with the guy they're texting. It's like, really? You can't just say, what's going on over there? You're texting the guy that? I mean, my kids I got a 12 and 15-year-old, and my 12-year-old's doing that. I just laugh,
Mm.
you know. So I feel like I'm getting old now. I'm 46 and I want to talk to people on the phone.
Right.
Most of the time I'm in my car driving in between appointments. I can't text, I can't email, so I got to do it later. I'm delayed. So it's a weakness right now where I need to get that person eventually in the phone room who's sitting down on a chair on the computer and can do all that: emails, texts, phone calls at the same time. So, that's changed right there, and that's been going on. That's only going to get, it could get to the point where the phone call almost doesn't exist. Just like the yellow page,
Mm.
white pages pretty much almost doesn't exist. Just,
That's
that thing
interesting.
right there. Yeah. So I see that happening. It's been happening.
When do you think in the last 3 years it's really expressed itself, or in the last 5?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, it was rare kind of doing that. I mean, we got emails, of course, that's been around for a while, but the texting thing is somewhat newer. But yeah, in the past 3 to 5 years, it's gotten more.
I think car dealerships have probably suffered a lot of that too, where they have to have, like, I think they call them like e-offices or internet sales and things like that. Some of them are I guess the smaller offices are like, forget that. And it's like, no, man, there's Facebook Marketplace. There's, a gazillion different things for your online inventory. People want to text, they want to use the chat bot, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe something I have no idea if this would be of value to you, but maybe just to our audience, for the social media, for the posting, maybe for the text responding and things like that. I've come across some really good resources after being in the marketing ecosystem of sorts. There's a lot of companies that do virtual assistants and things of that nature, and a lot of it is terrible. A lot of it is junk. I
Yeah.
could always maybe recommend some if that has any interest to you, offline, that we found, like in South America, in South Africa. Surprisingly, they're like you and me with a British accent. And I mean, I have people who are in their 40s who I employ who are out there who are really, really high caliber, who've been doing, whether it's sales, whether it's, digital marketing, whatever, they've been doing it for like 20 years. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I'm hiring my parents, but for a fraction of what I would spend here without having to pay benefits. And they're very, very thankful and very high caliber. So offline, can give any recommendations if you're interested. But for our audience, if there's kind of like a stopgap where you're debating having someone internal, great, rock and roll. You can also get talent that may be almost your age, 40, 30, whatever, that's not a recent high school graduate or college graduate, that you'll pay equivalent, but one has a ton of experience, is really, really good, and you can kind of lock and load them in. So that's a quick thought. Before we kind of give your shout outs of your website and your phone number, how people can reach you, do you have any, maybe 3 little takeaways that come to mind to share with the audience, or to kind of just go through to cap us off?
I wish I would have started the business earlier. There's a lot of reasons why people can't start their business earlier. And of course, a lot of it has to come down to money. So, that's one thing for me personally. It really was great when I did the production, because I started off by doing the sales. And I understood, construction. I'm from 4 generations of building houses. So I had a basic, a decent understanding of construction, but actually physically doing the work, there's a lot of things that you pick up, and you really have an appreciation for the guys doing the work once you actually do it. And I'm not talking about doing it for a day or a week. I'm talking years almost of doing it. Your knowledge is, when you go in and talk to a customer, this is exactly how we do it. How do I know that? Because I do it, and I did it that way for years. Exactly. It's not a salesperson in the back of their head. They're like, are we going to do it that way? Can I trust the guys that they are going to do what I say we're going to do? Those guys better listen to me. As a salesperson, you do the work first. This is exactly how we do it. And there's so many little details, and you might have a customer who's an engineer, analytical, whatever. And you need to know what you're talking about, and this and that. And that helps the sales right there. So, we at my old company, we would bring on a new salesperson. The first thing they would do is work 2 weeks in the field with the production.
Okay.
And they had a relatively decent, feel for it. And we always laugh, because at the end of the day, they're super dirty and they're sweating and they're super tired, because they're not used to doing the work. But that was good. That was good that we did that. But doing it longer is better. But that's hard for companies to do, because you got to pay them to do that, and you're really paying them to be a salesperson for you. But that is so helpful for the salesperson, and long term, that is huge for your company, because that person did both. So that's a huge thing, right there for a company to try to do that motto, to have that guy work in production, or you take your production guy and you move him into sales. But it takes kind of the right guy for that. But we did that a lot too. And that was huge.
Yeah, they probably won't sleep in the garage for a year, but they should go out in the field a little bit, get in the trench, go in the crawl space, that kind of thing. All right. Well, that's awesome. Love it. Love it. Do you have any good shout outs? Maybe there's potential people that need your help. Maybe there's people that are in the industry that could be good networkers or connectors with you guys. Your website, maybe a phone number, an email. How can people reach you guys?
healthybasementconcepts.com is where I'd like, for everybody to go. Check out my website. You can email me from there. We could do a chat, Google. You could call our office also, 513-505-8202. Those are gonna be the 2 main ways. But Facebook, we're on there too. You can contact us that way. But the website's the best, for both of us, because you can see what we do, and it's the fastest for me to get back with people. And like I said, I do all the phone calls, and I do all the inspections as of right now. So you get me coming out there and telling you and telling you exactly what your problem is and what your options are, because we're not a cookie cutter company. We don't have one solution for every house, and that's one of our companies out there. Competitors does that. It's the same every single job, and if you don't bring that job in exactly like that, you're fired.
Weird.
So, I don't do that. People love the options.
That's crazy. Okay. Well, awesome, Jason. It's been fun. You and I are going to stay on the line, but we are finishing up this episode. So thank you guys so much for listening. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us today for another revealing episode of Foundation Repair Success Secrets. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep discovering the tools, tactics, and techniques to ensure your online presence is as solid as the foundations you repair. Keep digging deep, and we'll see you in the next episode.